Hello, everybody. This is Masood, your host at Allah's Narrative. The image that you see on the stream here is a depiction of Jonah being swallowed by a whale. When Jonah flees the command of the Lord, he is thrown out of the boat in a storm, and a whale comes and swallows him. So this is the imagery that shows. And um, there is a parallel in ancient Mesopotamia in the form of a figurine that's like a mermaid, a male mermaid, or a chimera of fish and a human. So there is a parallel that appears to be one, which enthusiasts such as this Iraqi researcher, Dr. Majdi, picks up on it, and it says, story of Prophet Jonah originates from Sumerian civilization. It's too early. Too early. Premature citation by this Iraqi researcher. So, comparing apples to oranges, a human chimera, or a male mermaid, if you want to call him, is unlike Jonah being swallowed by a whale, and the fish chimeras nowhere come closer to describing a person being swallowed by a whale. So these are two completely different things. So chimeras, human chimeras, as it's depicted here, is of a fish. And there were plenty of other chimeras types in ancient Mesopotamia paganism of human chimeras with wings and stuff like that. And if you further go down all the way to the east, to the Far East, like in India, you have human chimeras of monkeys and elephants and um, amazing humans with amazing limbs and amazing set of heads. So pagan cultures tend to invent uh, a variety of bodily forms to usher sacredness or the awe to their gods. So they depict the human whom they think were gods from heaven into all different sorts of chimera types. So an Iraqi professor picking up on such a chimera found in ancient Mesopotamia in his Near Eastern research surprisingly finds a parallel to Jonah being swallowed by a whale. So that's a premature decision at at the least, at the bare minimum. If I would like to criticize in very soft terms, it's a premature decision. Last year, 2022, in the month of June, he came up with this sort of research or study or whatever it is, and it's released by Syriac Press. Amazing how bias and prejudice plays a role in finding parallels to biblical characters from this ancient Mesopotamia or other sorts of pagan cultures, that there's no resemblance whatsoever. There's not even a closer match. It's a fish chimera, and a human being swallowed by a whale is two different things. Nonetheless, they will soon find out that they've got no substance for it or whatever it is. Now, how was this connected to Enoch? Well, I get to read Apakalu in ancient mythology, Mesopotamian mythology. They were semi-divine beings, just like I told you about the Far Eastern traditions of religion and culture. You have chimeras of all sorts, monkeys and elephants, and very unique human figurines with multiple limbs and multiple heads and stuff like that. So, in Near Eastern studies, in Mesopotamian mythology, the Apakalu were semi divine beings who were associated by people, resident population, to be beings of wisdom and knowledge and stuff like that, right? These human figurines with their various attributes, fish like attributes, and stuff like that. So, yes, scholars who are researching these sort of ancient mythologies, they do come up with drawing connections and parallels. So I read that some scholars have drawn a parallel to these fish-like figurines and Enoch. May not be a widely accepted view, but there have been enthusiasts driven by their prejudice and bias to draw such a conclusion or to even allude to such parallels in the ancient Mesopotamian um, myths and connecting such a figurine to the character of Enoch. Gilgamesh, however, has a story. Um, and in his story, there's a character, Utnapishtim. So some scholars think or allude, or they refer to this character in the Epic of Gilgamesh to be bearing resemblances with the character of Enoch. Okay, so look, there's a lot of speculation happening by the researchers. They would like to connect Enoch to one of these ancient legends hidden in the mythologies of Near Eastern studies or far. I don't know. They haven't gotten to Far Eastern studies because India is far removed from Near Eastern studies, nonetheless. And the Indian um, mythology is far more complicated than you would find that to be in Mesopotamia, because Indian culture, religious culture, has a greater development in terms of timelines. They've got a greater undisturbed timeline, so there is plenty more innovations as to how these semi-divine figurines would look like. Okay, coming back to Near Eastern studies. So you have Apakalu, some scholars thinking that some of these semi-divine figurines bear resemblances to the character of Enoch, and you have in the Epic of Gilgamesh the character called Utnapishtim, whom they think bears resemblance to the character of Enoch. Okay. Now, who is Enoch after all? And I did see the entire episode where on MythVision, Derek Lambert discussed about Enoch and his origins. Um, there is, however, a point, a premise, or a logical inference that's been missed by Derek Lambert and his team, maybe Dr. Kipps or Joshua or whoever it is. They did talk about, they did put out material about Enoch, but they missed on a very important point. I would like to highlight that in a subtle way, and I would like to prod your intelligence, the fans of MythVision who are watching this sort of material these days. So I would like to investigate your understanding or your view or your learning of who this figure Enoch is, right? So there is this flood narrative found in ancient Near Eastern studies or traditions. I'm sorry. This flood narrative found in all sorts of different books in ancient myth Mesopotamia and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Then you have this Book of Jubilees, a pseudepigraphal text parallel to the biblical narrative. It talks about Enoch as well. The Bible talks about Enoch. So there is a flood narrative. I mean, I'm sorry. There's this flood narrative found in ancient Near Eastern traditions, right? So my point is, what has it got to do with Enoch? So everybody's talking about this flood narrative. Gilgamesh talks about it. The ancient Mesopotamian mythology talks about it. Um, and also primarily the Bible, the Quran, and the Book of Jubilees also mentions this flood narrative. So in that region, in Middle Eastern region, there's all these documents going all the way back to ancient times, talking about this deluge or flood narrative, right? So my question, and the Book of Enoch too talks about this flood narrative, right? So Enoch is in question. So who is Enoch? So we have all of these different ancient sources talking about flood narrative. And my question to you is, what has it got to do with Enoch? All right, let me bring your attention to this important facet. The Book of Jubilees, a pseudepigrapha, and the Bible talk about Enoch as an ancestor of Noah. And Enoch talks about the deluge in no uncertain and in no less uncertain terms. The writings attributed to Enoch contain references to a cataclysmic event. It describes the flood. This is referred to as deluge or the flood of waters. It describes how wickedness and corruption had spread among humanity, leading to a divine judgment in the form of a global flood. So there's this divine being who elects a figure, a human figure, to bring about divine judgment on a wicked and corrupt population. So everybody is talking about it. In no uncertain terms, the Book of Enoch talks about it. And in ancient mythology, Mesopotamian mythology, there's all sorts of references the scholars are alluding to. Scholars are trying to make a reference, and they're inferring those semi-divine beings, Apakalu, may have resemblance to Enoch. Gilgamesh has a character. His name, Utnapishtim, has resemblances to Enoch, right? Amidst all of this chaos, I found even Derek wondering who is Enoch. So, my obvious question to the fan club of MythVision: what has been your learning, your takeaways when you heard Derek on MythVision talk about Enoch? Who do you think Enoch is? Hmm? Let me know who you think he is, and what the Bible has gotten wrong about Enoch. And why is this question so important? Because Enoch's accounts talk about the flood of Noah, and the Bible and the Book of Jubilees proclaim Enoch as the ancestor of Noah. And Derek on his Mythvision channel was wondering who this Enoch was. And the scholars are doing their own crazy stuff by alluding to all these figurines in ancient Mesopotamia to bear resemblances with Enoch. Who do you think Enoch is? I would be very interested to see and listen to your thoughts on the comments section. So let me know, what do you think about Enoch, and what do you think about how the Bible has gotten Enoch correct or wrong? And I'll let you know what the Quran says about him in a future video. Does that make sense? And I don't know, I have articulated this like with enough clarity. But yeah, if you would like me to reiterate, there's huge confusion as to who Enoch is. Some of the scholars who research near Middle Eastern studies, who do research in near Middle Eastern studies about ancient Mesopotamia, Mesopotamian mythologies, make references to some of the semi-divine Apakalu figurines to bear resemblances with Enoch. Utnapishtim in the Epic of Gilgamesh, scholars think, has some resemblance to the character of Enoch. The Book of Jubilees in the Bible and the Quran talk about Enoch. And the Enoch talk about Enoch, specifically the Bible and the Book of Jubilees talk about Enoch as the ancestor of Noah. The Book of Enoch talks about the flood, the deluge, as a judgment cast by the divine being through an elect servant who was righteous and who earned the favor of God, as a judgment on the wicked and corrupt population. And the Book of Enoch talks about it, as well as all other sources from Near Eastern uh, literary works. After all, the fundamental question, who is Enoch? What is this riddle about Enoch? You and Mythvision, I think Derek was wondering who this figure Enoch at the end of the day was. And what I'm telling you, there is a beautiful answer that solves this puzzle and strikes the right arrow, hitting bullseye. Before I give you that information, I would like to see, what do you think, and what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section and tell me if the biblical scribes have gone wrong when they've spoken about Enoch in those writings. So looking forward to your comments and engagement. We'll see you in the future video. Until then, look after yourselves, and bye-bye.